Alright, text adventure games, they definitely benefit from the fact that you wouldn't need to document something like the fact that moving a pawn is more like moving a unit. And I gotta rearrange that rule so that it counts for all the different things. So a bishop, a pawn, or a knight can move. The pawn can move one space at a time, the other two can move two spaces at a time. Okay, so when you use an action point to move your bishop around, your culture unit, you can use within that same action, like you can use that same action point to move and convert another unit nearby. All right. And then when you have 5 pawns, when you've collected your 5th pawn, it would have a different outcome. It would give you. So the next part of the game is you move around the map, you settle down and have a city state appear. From that city state, you start making pawns. You put your commander on the field, you put your bishop, your creative unit on the field, your culture unit, and you start to try to destroy the other side, convert the other side. The goal of the game is to get 5 pawns. You want to use your culture unit to get 5 pawns. You want to use your commander unit to keep the other side from collecting 5 pawns. You want to keep on the offense, use your knight to block the other side from getting to the point where they have 5 pawns. Version 1 of this game is going to be very militaristic. Version 2 is going to have a rule about farming. I've started to think ahead about version 2 to make it less as aggressive of a game, so I could start adding in more strategies. But version 1 is going to be trying to get 5 pawns so that you can get the queen. You can get the queen unit. Alright, so you get your 5th pawn from the enemy side, and you get to replace it with your queen unit. And the queen unit could be placed. You get to choose one of your pawns to switch into a queen. You could put them behind the front lines, forward front lines, wherever you'd like. And then the queen unit can capture the city states. And when you capture a city state, it's kind of the end of version 1. There's not many more rules I have. I started to think of what can happen after you become an empire, but we'll get to that in a second. The next thing would be, one more thing. The knight and the bishop can switch places with a pawn, like move the pawn onto their square and then they move onto the square the pawn was at. That can be a movement. So the knight or the bishop can flip places with the pawn, and that counts as one movement. They could keep moving if they had another movement point after that fact. All right, and then for the queen taking over a castle, so again, kind of like the knight or the bishop, if you're using an action point to move already, you could use that action point to take the castle, and it would cost only one action point. Action point already. Already to move. The outcome would be capturing the city-state. So you would replace the castle with the king piece and take control of the other team's commander or bishop units, or spawn them in if they're not on the field already. So this is where you start to snowball. If you capture someone else's side, then there'll be more phases of the game. That player isn't kicked out. I want to make a game where you go through the phases of humanity without being like forced into a win-lose scenario. You just have different histories that unfold depending on how well some of the players play the game and what kind of strategy they pull on and what kind of course they take. So right now it's just purely a war game, but there will be other options on how to get the king piece. I was thinking of how you could do that in version 2, where you might own tiles around your castle by farming the tiles. So a new movement would be like using a pawn to farm on a tile piece. And then if they do that 3 times, like if you use 3 action points to farm on that tile piece, then you would be able to trade with another player's pawn and then be able to run back with investment cash. And if you get your pawn back to your castle, you could own the land next to it. Your pawn would be able to move like 4 pieces at a time, 4 tiles at a time. A lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Anyway, for now, version 1, this is where the game starts to close. You get another side's capital, and you take control of their commander and their culture unit. And, I mean, at that point, you should probably be able to win the game by outnumbering the other side. And then you lose an action point when you do that, and